Afternoon, brothers and sisters. Back for the finish up on Psalm 78, which was the video before the last. If you'll remember, I got cut off. Sorry about that. I apologize. So we're going to pick the chapter up at verse 60, I believe. I think that was actually the last verse I read. It might have been the one after that. I'm not 100% sure. But we're going to pick it up here at verse 60. Alright. And we have a lot of information actually to give on verse 60. Actually, I think we went a little ahead, yeah. I think we were ahead by one verse. But I wanted to backtrack and pick this verse up because there's just so much information really crammed into this one verse once you understand what it is that you are actually looking at. So Psalm 78 verse 60 says this, so that she forsook the tabernacle of Shiloh, the tent which she had placed among men. Alright. And delivered her strength into captivity and her glory into the enemy's hands. Now we knew that that verse linked us to Lamentations chapter 2 verse 1. She cast down the glory of Israel, we're told. Which, if you read Lamentations, it becomes very clear that she calls that daughter Zion, which is also known as the stronghold of Israel. She's described as a stronghold in Song of Songs. She's the Shulamite. We'll get into that. But so verse 60, she forsook the tabernacle of Shiloh. Now the interesting correlation that we're going to make here is what we find spoken of about Shiloh in Judah's blessings. So if we hearken back to Judah's blessings in Genesis 49, verse 10, we remember, if we know these blessings, there's 2 chapters of blessings for the tribes of Israel and for the sons here. And so one is Genesis 48:49, because 48 takes in Ephraim and Manasseh, which were 2 sons of Joseph. And then the others are in Genesis 49. So these are the blessings blessed by Jacob. Alright, so these are Jacob's blessings over the sons, which came directly from God. And then in Deuteronomy 33, you get them blessed again, but this time by Moses. Alright, of God. So if you know those 2 chapters, they're just fundamental chapters that we just know, all right, because the blessings of the tribes are in these 2 chapters, these 3 chapters really. And so chapter 49 of Genesis verse 10 says this, the scepter shall not depart from Judah. All right, so we've already got Judah, the son Judah in view here. The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver. We know the lawgiver come from Israel, not Judah. The lawgiver is spoken of in Psalm 78. So let's go back to Psalm 78. And we are actually going to have to backtrack. So I didn't write this down. I never do this. I was catching myself up on the entire chapter again this morning. And doing my cross-reference verses and all the information that I wanted to include here. So what does it say? I'll find it. So sorry about this, folks. I should have had this one right down. But it speaks of, right here, verse 5. For she established a testimony in Judah, not Jacob. She established a testimony in Judah and appointed a law in Israel. That's through Israel, which she commanded our fathers, our mothers, that they should make known to their children. It's our mothers that makes the laws known. All right? The birthright belongs to her. We already discussed this. And so when you look at that, you see what it's telling you. It's not Jacob. They always stick Jacob in there. Jacob is not what should be there. In my opinion, from my studies, it should be Judah. Judah represents the male, Israel represents the female. All right? Judah would be your king, Israel would be your queen. Judah's male, Israel's female. Judah's male, Israel's female. Judah represents the body, and Israel represents the glory. So the glory is what got cast down, it states. Okay, the glory of Israel. And I believe the glory, or your queen, comes directly from the tribe of Ephraim, which is indicated again in the scriptures in many places. So again, we look at verse 10 of Genesis 49. It says, the scepter shall not depart from Judah. The scepter is your lawgiver, believe it or not. This is your connection that few are able to make. So the scepter shall not depart from between Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet. So your scepter is your lawgiver. That's what it's saying here. Your scepter, which we've identified the scepter as the branch, the daughter of Zion, or Zion, daughter Zion, is your lawgiver, represent as your scepter from between his feet. Now if you look at between his feet, it's pointing to this area. It's pointing to the Holy of Holies, is really what it's pointing. What rules his heart? What rules man's heart? What rules the second Adam's heart? What rules the king's heart is the righteous spirit, which is called your lawgiver. From between his feet until Shiloh come. Now Shiloh was not in the territory of Judah. Shiloh was in the territory of Ephraim. That's Israel. That's your daughter. And we get further reference and recognition of that in Joseph's blessings in Genesis 49. So until Shiloh come, and unto her shall the gathering of the people be. Well, we looked at the word gathering in Psalm 78 in our first video that we looked at the first 60 verses. All right? And what did it say? What does it say? It says, Maskil of Asaph. Now, Maskil is a form of a song or poetry. Asaph, we recognized the word meant your gatherer, which then links us to Ecclesiastes 12, where your gatherer is found as your female assembler, which is a reference to the daughter Zion as your spirit, gathering proverbs so that she might present them in refute in Psalm 50, where she actually rebukes fallen Adam and says, your testimony's all wrong, it's all a lie, you lied about me. And it says, oh my people, to my law. That would be to your lawgiver, which is identified as Shiloh, which is in the territory of Ephraim, which we then find in Genesis 49. All the blessings of Joseph indicate that the ruler would come from the tribe of Ephraim, Joseph's descendants. All right. So it says, incline your ears to the words of my mouth. That's your lawgiver. I will open my mouth in parables and I will utter dark sayings. Now, we know from what we studied already that the gathering of the people would be to this ruler. All right, so we're going to skip back down to verse 60. All right, and read what it says again. Because we're looking at putting information together that nobody else wants to put together. So that she forsook the tabernacle of Shiloh, the tent which she placed among the men. So that was to say she inhabited the daughter which inhabited the son. All right, that's your ruler. That's your lawgiver. And in Genesis 49, the scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet. That's the son's feet. That's Christ's feet. And he's protecting that scepter, that ruler, until she comes to power. And unto her, we're told here, unto her, that lawgiver, unto that scepter, unto that word of truth, which is the Spirit of Christ. This is what Shiloh is representing. Between Judah's feet is his Spirit's representation. And she comes from Ephraim, as we just discovered. And unto her shall the gathering of the people be. That's your gatherer. Again, from Ecclesiastes, your female assembler, and again from Psalm 78, The Psalms of Asaph are all about this one Spirit that gathers the children back. They hearken to her words. We study in Song of Songs, chapter 1, verse 6, where the Shulamite says she is black, but she has kept his vineyard and not her own. She has neglected her own. That means she has failed to teach them the word of heaven as given by her through the Spirit of great God Almighty Mother. And so there we see all of this. Now let's just scoot down to Joseph's blessings right quick here, which of course is in the same chapter. Joseph is a fruitful bough, even a fruitful bough by a well, whose branches, whose daughters run over the wall. This was the breaches in the wall of David. They were not breaches, they were gates. And Solomon daubed these gates up, in effect eliminating, he thought, the key of David and installing the key of Solomon, which was the Harlot Spirit. All right, and we're told what he does to the reservoir. We'll keep studying here till we hit those words. So it says Joseph is a fruitful bough. The archers, that's your husband, Baal, 1167, which is derived from 1168, which is Baal, the god. Go look that up on Wikipedia, and you'll find what it really comes from. So the archers have sorely grieved her, not him, and shot at her and hated her. Remember, they're shooting at the branches that run through the wall. That's who they're shooting at, which is the daughters here. Look the word branches up. It's going to tell you it's 1323, I believe. And so 24, but her bow, we're looking at two covenants. Adam chose a covenant with the harlot known as Daughter Babylon and rejected. Daughter Zion became the outcast that no man sought for, her righteous words. He wanted a harlot so he could govern himself. And he installed that harlot in here. And she says, no one sees me in Isaiah 47. Daughter Babylon says this, the harlot says, no one sees me. I'm hid in his heart. That's what she's saying there. I will never be widowless. I will never be childless. They're always going to eat up my words. So they can rule themselves. That's what the whole snare is here. But her bow, her real covenant abode in strength, and the arms of her hands were made strong by the hands of the mighty God of Israel. From thence is the shepherdess, the stone of Israel. Now we identified that stone in the last study of this chapter, which was the video before the last, the X chromosome one. And we get the allegory to our stone as very distinctly a mother giving birth to children in Deuteronomy 32, verse 18. And she says, you forgot all about me. She became the outcast that no one sought for. So 32, verse 18, of the rock that begat thee, thou art unmindful and hast forgotten God that formed thee. Those words both mean birth and writhed in pain in birth. So you forgot her that birthed you. All right, and you began to hearken to the lies of Baal, who was shooting at these daughters to take them out and to install a harlot spirit so he could rule himself and write his own laws. All right, so from Israel, from thence is the shepherdess, the stone of Israel. So this ruler, this lawgiver, this scepter, which is represented as daughter Sion, a Sion, is a descendant, is being protected by him, by our second Adam, Christ, our Redeemer, who died to show us this example of what rules and governs his body is this righteous spirit and her laws that come from great God Almighty. And so those laws is what should be governing us. They're not. It's man-made laws that's currently governing us. Even our man-made religion, our theology, is based on that structure. It is not based on the true foundation. So, and if you want to continue to read Joseph's blessings, his blessings are great, as is Ephraim's. If you go to chapter 48 of Genesis, you'll find just precisely, you will find, well, let's do it. Let's go there. You will find Ephraim gathering the people, because Ephraim is your gatherer, the lawgiver, the one daughter, the queen of the kingdom. So let's go down here. I think it's this chapter. It may be 33, where it speaks of gathering. keep scrolling down here till we hit it. Okay, so it's not in this chapter. So it must be in 33, so you just, one moment here. I'm just making sure it's not this chapter. Okay, so let's go to Deuteronomy. I was just here. Deuteronomy 33 says this. And this again is, I'll find it. So Deuteronomy 33 is where we're heading. These are the blessings by Moses. These ones in Genesis 48, 49, like I said before, is of Jacob, from Jacob. So 33 verse, let me see if we can find it here. Yeah. So it's verse 17 of Deuteronomy 33, and we get it in Joseph's blessings. It says his glory, actually it would be her glory, although it's Joseph, it is Ephraim that we're looking at, it is the north kingdom, it is Israel that we're looking at, which is the daughter that we're looking at. So her glory is like the firstling of her, not bullock, her heifer, and her horns are like the horns of a unicorn. There, actually, we can link that to the behemoth in Job 40, I believe is where it is. And with them she shall push or gather the people together, to the ends of the earth. And they are the 10,000s of Ephraim, and they are the thousands of Manasseh. So we're told here who gathers. And that's what we've been looking at, right? All right. So sorry about that. So let's move on in Psalm 78. All right. And it also says in Isaiah 61, that was the other spot. Okay, so that she forsook the tabernacle of Shiloh, the tent which she placed among men. And that was the daughter Zion, full of her glory, and delivered her strength into captivity and her glory into the enemy's hands. Now, we did a study on that also, why she did that. And that was our study on Psalm 106. I may post the study under this video for anybody who wants to hit on it and look at it. She gave her people over also to the sword and was wrought with her inheritance. These daughters that she worked through, she considered her inheritance. They were her inheritance to work through. And when the sons of Israel no longer wanted these daughters in covenant, she was forced to actually move off of these daughters. Actually, she would come and go because the Spirit was not actually fully indwelling them. But that's what changes this time around. Now, I mentioned that on the last video that I did this study in, was that what actually changes is the two now becomes one. That's the double fold that she is actually promised in this chapter. I believe it's in this chapter as well. But in Isaiah 61, it says this. It says, instead of shame and dishonor, you will enjoy a double share of honor. You will possess a double portion of prosperity in your land, and everlasting joy will be yours. This double portion is actually going to take us to the twins, this idea of a twin. It is not male and female. It is a female with her twin counterpart spirit, which is actually going to link us to the seraphim, believe it or not. And I can back that up. So let me see here. I know I'm getting ahead of myself. But this double portion, it says, instead of shame and dishonor, you will enjoy a double share of honor. You will possess a double portion of prosperity. So she says of these daughters that were put to shame and that were disgraced, they carried the blame. And she says, speaks of them in Zephaniah chapter 3. And she says this. In Zephaniah chapter 3, she says, in verse 18, I will gather them that are sorrowful for the solemn assembly, who are of thee. That means they were cut from their mother, to whom the reproach of it was a burden. They were troubled by this false theology. They're troubled by the fact that they do not see Mother God there. They're troubled by the fact that though their eyes are bearing witness to a male and female upon this earth, that the Godhead is stated as being he, and a he births. They're troubled by many things. It doesn't make sense. They're troubled by the rebuke of the daughters. They're troubled by this false understanding. It does not make sense to them. So there's many aspects to look at, but the greatest one is that mother's been denied her rightful place, as has the daughters. Behold, at that time I will undo all that afflict thee, and I will save her that halteth. I will gather. Here we are with the gatherer again. So she is actually gathering her daughters first, which are known as the first fruits, who possess a spirit that is opposite to them in the heavens, is what it looks like when you begin to put it all together. And I will gather her that was driven out, and I will get them praise and fame in every land where they have been put to shame. Well, this takes us back to this. Instead of your shame, you shall have double honor. And instead of confusion, they shall rejoice in their portion. So they're confused by this false theology that does not make sense. Therefore, in their land they shall possess double. Everlasting joy shall be theirs. You can also look at the land as their bodies is going to possess a double portion. So we're going to look at that in a minute. All right. And at that time will I bring you again, even in the time that I gather you, for I will make you a name and a praise among all people of the earth, when I turn back your captivity before your eyes, says the Lord. So you have the daughters in view there, known as Israel, being restored back to the rightful place, their heads being picked up. All right? And here they're promised a double portion. Right. For I, the Lord, love justice. I hate robbery and iniquity. In my faithfulness, I will give them the recompense and make an everlasting covenant with them. So you see this. And what does it say? In Isaiah 40, verse 2. Speak tenderly to Jerusalem and proclaim to her that her forced labor has been completed. Her iniquity has been pardoned, for she has received from the hand of the Lord double for all her sins. Well, that don't sound like Christ taking her sins for her. It sounds like she bore the sins upon her. All right? And for that, we've done this study where the sisters have been cast down. They've been shouldering this burden as the Azazel goat out in the lands of the Gentiles. This is where the true scepter was cast. And that's representation of the spirit, which is female. And it's for a reason. We're told the reason in Romans 11, so that she would, what does it say? If the casting away of them be the reconciling of the nations. So it was to reconcile the Gentiles back. And that's known as Adam, really, Adam's seed. But Israel gets cast out amongst them to bring him back in. All right? And so she's promised in Isaiah 49 that she will not only inherit Israel, but also the Gentiles, which means this lawgiver's word goes out and they begin to receive this truth. And by receiving that truth, they become her vineyard that you find restored back to her in Hosea chapter 2, which links back to speak tenderly to Jerusalem. And she says in Hosea 2, she says, I will allure her back, and I will give her back her vineyards. And that means they're teaching the law of heaven, the truth of heaven. All right? The law of heaven is not this extensive law system that subjugates women under men and subjugates the poor, and it makes men rich through their own laws. That's Old Testament law that did that. That's the covenant between the harlot and fallen Adam. Christ, when his death on the cross took place, it's showing you that he died to restore the righteous spirit back to her rightful place, which is Shiloh between Judah's feet. Now Shiloh was in the territory of Ephraim. All right? That's where she comes from. And though she was denied in the beginning, she's restored back to her rightful place. So Isaiah 51 verse 11, and again Isaiah 40 verse 2, she's given double for all her sins, but then she's restored double back. Alright? So she has to bear these sins upon her head, as is the Azazel goat cast out, though she did not take away the children. And she states that in, where is it? I wrote it down. Isaiah, do I got it pulled up? Let's see here. It's stated in Psalm. That's where it's stated. Yeah, it's Psalm 69, verse 4, where she says it. She says, then I restored that which I took not away. Alright, so that's your daughter Zion, who became the outcast that no man sought after, which was represented as the righteous spirit, which is also your Azazel goat, that was cast out into the lands of the Gentiles to bear the sins upon her head, for what Israel had done, really. But why the real true Israel is out there, and we're looking at the males that cast her out, didn't want her as their scepter, as their ruler. Alright, Shiloh. They dealt treacherously with the gentle flowing waters of Shiloh. Now I'm getting off course here. Let's go back in and read Psalm 78 a little bit. So she gave her people over also unto the sword, and was wrought with her inheritance. The fire consumed their young men, and their maidens were not given into marriage. Their priests fell by swords, and their widows made no lamentation. Then the Lord hears 136, his daughter Zion's number, the Spirit. So that means that this Lord actually has a physical being that is her twin. That's what it looks like. The more and more you get studying this and understanding this. And this is where it actually links. Alright. I wrote it down, so. Not that that means anything, right? But this is what it says in Habakkuk. Now, I've pondered this verse for several years now. And I was only just gave this understanding. And it had to come from the Spirit, because I have looked at this and looked at this. And by no means of myself could I come to this understanding. It had to be the Spirit that gave it to me. I was shown it on the 27th of November. And, which was what? What was the 27th? It was Tuesday. It was Wednesday. So I was shown it on Wednesday of this week. And it linked me right to the verse, Habakkuk chapter 3, verse 3. And this is what this verse reads. It says, God came from Teman, and the Holy One from Mount Paran, or Paran. Her, not his glory, covered the heavens, and her praise, not his praise, filled the earth. Now, I started looking at that, and it was the Spirit putting it together in my brain. We were reasoning the text out together. That's what we're told to do, to reason with the Spirit. And it automatically linked me to that verse in Daniel 12:5, which was another verse I'd had on my mind for quite a few years. And this is what it says. It says, then I, Daniel, looked, and there before me stood two others, one on this bank of the river, and one on the opposite bank. Now, I believe you're actually looking at the second heaven, or even the third heaven, and the first heaven is what you're looking at. And that river is where you're going to find your doctrine. But it's also allegorically referring to that firmament that divides us. Alright? And we spoke of the rivers that in the end of days cuts through the land, the earth, the body, as these daughters of Zion, with the truth flowing out into the world. That's how we view a river here. Alright? So here it just began to make sense that this daughter on this side of the river, known as a daughter of Zion, is speaking to this Spirit, known as the daughter of Zion, on the other side of the river. Alright? That's our twin that we find in Song of Songs. And I don't have it pulled up. Let's look at it. We'll see if we can't find it. And what does this say? It says everyone has born a twin. And it's speaking about the teeth. Yeah. It is in chapter 4 of Song of Songs. and it's verse 2. So chapter 4, verse 2 of Song of Songs. Thy teeth are like a flock of sheep. It's funny because you're getting your teeth, and your tongue is your word, your sword is between your teeth, right? But you got one above and one below. Thy teeth are like a flock of sheep that are even shorn, which came up from the washing. There we have the water again, whereof every one bears twins, and none is barren among them. You see, and we get it again. There's 2 times, I believe, that twins are mentioned in Song of Songs. They've everyone bore a twin. That means this one on this side of the river and this one on this side of the river. They're actually speaking to one another. That's why they're called your first fruits. They are the first ones that becomes indwelt with the Spirit fully upon them. And they are chosen by mother. They are her personal inheritance. And that's your twofold. They are promised the twofold. They are the only ones actually promised the twofold. But, let me see. So, when I got looking at Habakkuk 3:3 and the actual words, I began to run them out. Because over time I slowly began to realize that they'll name something, a name, as opposed to telling you what that means, right? I don't know if I'm explaining it. So T-man, or Teman, God came from Teman. That's the right hand. When you get running out the meaning of Timon, it's the right hand. Well, who is this that come from Timon? Well, we discovered that God was this Lord here, 136, which is known as Daughter Zion, which was God upon this earth, which is also the same Lord that sits to Christ's hand in Psalm 110, right? So you go look up Psalm 110. The 3 Lords there you'll find is 3068, that's Mother's, 113, that's Christ, and 136 is Daughter Zion, who is the rod of his strength out of Zion, and she sits to the right hand. So it says God, who we identified as Daughter Zion, came from Timon. That's the right hand of Christ. The Holy One from Mount Paran. Guess what you're going to get when you begin to run out that word Paran? You're going to get bough and branch. That's what you're going to get. So here you have, so the Holy One is this physical Daughter Zion, who is the branch, the descendant, all right, that is also shown us in Micah, is it 5? We've done quite a few videos on that. Micah 5, the descendant, the female descendant, which is your rod, your branch, your daughter with the word of truth. And your Holy One came from the right hand of God. Mother, 3068, Christ, 113. And she is the branch of his strength, the scepter of his strength, out of Zion, it's Daughter Zion. And her glory covered the heavens, and her praise filled the earth. You see? And in Daniel 12:5, you see this link. Then I, Daniel, looked, and there before me stood two others, one on this bank of the river and one on the opposite bank. These are your first fruit daughters, getting ready to be indwelled by the Spirit. I know I am spoken by the Spirit. Is it possible I'm speaking to my twin spirit in the heavens that is guiding me into these truths? It's possible. And it is certainly alluded to in Ezekiel 1, verse 9. If you are able to run these words out in your Strong's Hebrew through your interlinear, I would recommend highly that you do that. So this is what it says. It says, their wings were joined one to another. Wings is a sign of authority, heavenly authority and earthly authority. So we're looking at 2 wings, all right? Again, we got our twins looking at here. And they're joined this time, one to another, and they turned not when they went. They went everyone straight forward. That's your straight footpath, your clean footpath, being restored once again back to you. So what does one here mean? Well, if you look it up, it's your Hebrew word 802, and it means, guess what it means? It means woman, wife, and female. That's what it means. If you look up the word another, joined one to another, another is Hebrew 269. It's feminine. It means sister. They're joined. This is your double portion. This is your twin allegory. This is your teeth of her that bore a twin. Everyone has borne a twin. Your heavenly, your earthly. The word, your tongue represents your river. Your well, your doctrine, which is supposed to come from your wife, is stated that, so we're talking to men here. It is your wife with the word of truth in her mouth. And it's interesting. Go look it up. Wings, feminine. It's a feminine word. Wings. Extremity. So that's the extreme of the power. Heavenly authority, earthly authority, is represented as wings. And so here you're actually seeing your twins beginning to come into existence. And so when it says twofold, this time they're actually operating as one unit. They're not operating as a twosome, but they're called twins, but they become literally one upon this earth. So that's our twin allegory if you want to go look the words up and try to connect it for yourself. I just know the Spirit did it for me. So it says in verse 65 of Psalm 78, Then the Lord awaked as one out of sleep, like a mighty, not man, woman, that shouteth by reason of wine. All right. She was quite angry. She's quite upset when she finally wakes up. And she does wake up. What does Song of Songs say? He warns the daughters of Zion, which are on that side of the river, I believe. Do not awaken love. Do not awaken my beloved one until she is ready to be awakened. All right. So you get that in Song of Songs. He says that to the daughters of Zion. Then he says, don't awaken him. Don't awaken him. It's not him, it's her. He's saying, don't awaken my love until she's prepared. All right? Until she's ready to be awakened. And he says that to the daughters of Zion. The daughters of Zion is those on the other side of the river. All right? So he's saying to them, that spirit on the other side of the river, don't awaken her, them, until she is prepared to be awakened. All right. Now, all right. So when she awoke, when the Lord awaked, that's 136 here, verse 66, she smote her enemies in the hinder part. She put them to a perpetual reproach. Well, in the hinder parts here, we get, in some passages, I never looked it up, that she smote them actually with hemorrhoids. And I wonder if that actually is not going to link us back to our verse that we find in Jeremiah 30, verse 6, where we see every man standing around with his hands on his hips as a woman in travail. Now, I know hemorrhoids don't, they're painful and they put you in travail. But the indication seems to be that his travailing there is pointing actually to his private part in Jeremiah 30, verse 6. And I also did a study, a great study on it actually. If I wrote it here, I did. You'll find it in, let me see here. Yeah, Isaiah 13. Isaiah chapter 13. Verse 6 to 18. I did a study last week in this. And it says, their faces shall be scorched with the flame, all comfort and hope shall fail. The stars of heaven shall not give their light, the sun shall be darkened. Such expressions are often employed by the prophets to describe the convulsions of governments. So you get that allegory again, of course, in Revelation 6, where the stars of heaven is falling. That's an allusion to your government falling. They're convulsing. They're coming down. And mother promised her daughters that she'll restore them back by removing the mountains. She tears the mountains down. Your mountains is your he-goat rulers. Your proper rulers are called she-goats. They're in your Abrahamic Sarah covenant in Genesis 15:9. Those 5 animals are listed there, and they are promised to be fully restored back to their rightful place. And they are promised it by mother who says, I laid out the tabernacle. Well, the way she lays it out is by giving birth to her children. And then she promises her daughter Zion that she will be fully restored, but she will not only be a light unto the Israelites, she will now be a light unto the Gentiles. So again, you see a twofold there. She promises that to her in Isaiah 49. And she says, you will clothe them as an ornament, as a bride doeth. Well, a bride is kind of like a tree. We're kind of seeing a Christmas tree. And for those who hate it, well, it identifies Israel as your fir tree. She's your light. She's also identified as the light of the world. So there you go, for anybody who has issues. When I look at it in total allegorical terms. I'm not looking at heathenistic terms. If I was a heathen, I'd look at it in that way, but I'm not. Because I'm a saint, I'm looking at it in totally different terminology. That being what it may be, we all make our own decisions, don't we? So, moreover, it says, she refused the tabernacle of Joseph and chose not the tribe of Ephraim. Now, here you got to understand what she's looking at as the males. All right? The son would not come from Joseph or from Ephraim. It's the daughter that is identified as coming from the tribe of Ephraim and Joseph. That's who comes from there. She's talking the male here, but chose the tribe of Judah and the Mount Zion which she loved. Now remember, who sits in Mount Zion is daughter Zion. She sits there, but daughter Zion is defined or is distinctly shown us as coming from the tribe of Ephraim. It is the daughter that comes from there. She is your scepter. She is your lawgiver. She is Shiloh. Shiloh is in the territory of Ephraim. Shiloh, Judah's power, the male power, will not cease to be until the scepter comes forth. Is that what it says? I'm saying it probably wrong. Let's go and get it right. Verse 10 or 11, which is it? It is verse 10. The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet until Shiloh comes. So it's her, right? And unto her shall the gathering of the people be. All right? So there, Shiloh was in the territory of Ephraim. We know the stone, the rock, comes again in Joseph's blessings in Genesis 49, which is your shepherdess. That comes from Joseph, Ephraim, Israel. Remember, Israel was called Ephraim as well. That represent the 10 northern tribes. All right, because then you have Judah over here. But chose the tribe of Judah, the Mount of Zion, which she loved. And she built her sanctuary like high palaces. Your daughter of Zion, your Shiloh, your Shulamite. Now Shiloh, that was another word I wanted to look at. The meaning of Shiloh, this is what means tranquil. Shiloh means tranquil. And the Shulamite means peaceable, perfect, and that which recompenses. Now she recompenses what we find in Psalm 69 verse 4. Then I restored that which I took not away. It's the Shulamite who does that. And as you read Song of Songs, she grows brighter and brighter and brighter. She's also called the palace, which is typically where your stronghold actually is found. And it says, and she built her sanctuary like high palaces, like the earth which she had established forever. All right. But what are we told of these waters of Shiloh? All right. We are told, let me see here, if I can find the verse, if I wrote it down or if I just referenced it. Okay. Just let me find this. I can. Sorry, folks. It's in Isaiah chapter 8, verse 6. It says this. It says, my care for the people of Judah, that would be for the men as well as women, but men we're looking at. Judah tends to represent the male. My care for the people of Judah is like the gently flowing waters of Shiloh, it says. But they have rejected it. That's the outcast daughter Zion, whom no man sought after, which is also your Shulamite. She says, my own vineyards I have neglected. I was keeping his. The sun looked upon me, and I became black. To be black in the scriptures means to be without the doctrine of truth. which is why she is found travailing in Isaiah 26, and she is unable to deliver her children. She is found there travailing because she does not have the doctrine of truth on her tongue. But in Micah, it says, you will go out into Babylon, the fields of Babylon. That's your Azazel goat, as Israel cast out into the Gentile nation. And she says, there you will give birth. That's what she says. And you'll be restored back to your rightful place. She's always described as a stronghold. She's described as a palace. She is described as the waters where you are to find your words of truth, the spirit of truth. She is represented as your word of truth. And she says, I give in covenant my spirit with the words of truth. You'll find that in Isaiah 59. All right. I hope I'm not forgetting anything. Okay, let's see. Okay. So, just a second here. Get this back. Okay. So, but chose the tribe of Judah, the Mount Zion, and she built her sanctuary like high palaces. She chose David, also her servant, and took him from the sheepfolds. Now she chooses a man out who exalts her law, all right, who knows her, who loves her. And if you read the Psalms of David, he definitely knew her. He calls her pleasant. The word of the Lord is pleasant, it says. It says, let me look upon the glory of the Lord. Psalm 119 is all about David saying, do not let me depart from your righteous laws, O Lord. And he's talking about the daughter of Zion. And so from David is promised a servant, which is also Christ, Judah, which comes as this servant that is crucified on the cross to show us the spirit that was behind his sacrifice, which is the daughter Zion exalted back to her rightful place, which is the Queen of Glory. Now that's what he shows us, all right? In verse 71, from following the ewes, great with young, she brought him to feed Judah, his people, and Israel, her inheritance. So she fed them according to the integrity of her heart and guided them by the skillfulness of her hand. So you can look at that as your spirit, or you can look at this as the man David upon the earth who did this. All right, because the spirit had to work outside of his body. And so she would often find righteous sons to work through because they were not receiving anything to do with the daughters. And so she worked with what she had to work with. If you think God is limited by form, then you don't know who God is. You say, oh, I got to be rescued by a man. No, God can use anybody. Do not limit God by form. All right? So, in the reservoir, all right, when it says that he rejected the gentle flowings of Shiloh. Now, it doesn't say Shiloh, but I truly believe it is Shiloh that is in reference here. And we get that truth because when you look at that, it means the reservoir, all right? They refused the reservoir. Let me see here if I can find it. Yeah, if we go to Isaiah 22, we're shown that exact comparison. You have also seen, this is verse 9 of Isaiah 22, ye have seen also the breaches of the city of David, that they are many, and ye gather together the waters of the lower pool. Now here I'm not 100% sure what, and it was Solomon that was doing the gathering, that he may well have been gathering the words of the harlot here. I'm not sure. I haven't gone in and really studied it hard. But I know when you look up the lower pool, it means it can take you to the nether world, the basest. So it may well be that he was gathering these daughters that he took in marriage, right? And he gathered them together. That could be it. But we are told here in Isaiah chapter 22, verse 11, what he did with the reservoir, which is the word of truth from these daughters of Zion. And this is what it says. You built a reservoir, and that word there is 4:7-24, between the two walls, for the water of the old pool, that would be Shiloh, But you did not look to the one, that's your Holy One, who made it, or have regard for the Holy One who planned it long ago. So he had no regards for her words, for her spirit of truth. And again, we are told in Proverbs chapter 5 where you are to get your words from, where you are to get your water from, which is representative of the Spirit and representative of the Word. Alright? So, that's our whole chapter of Psalm 78. Is there anything else? I think that's everything we wanted to go over for the rest of this video. And that's our Psalm 78 that connects us to the video before the last one, which is your X chromosome. If you find that in the title, then you'll know. That's the first part of this study of Psalm 78, and then this is the finish up that I promised that I would do. So let me just look through my notes here right quick. I have a recipe. I made garlic and oregano pork tenderloin. It was good. It was a good recipe. 2 grated garlic cloves, 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar, 1½ tablespoons of olive oil, 1 teaspoon each of salt and pepper, and 2 teaspoons of dried oregano, and 1 teaspoon of Cajun dry. It was pretty good. And you bake that in the oven. It was really good. I was surprised. Anyway, so there you go. Psalm 53 verse 6, let's just finish up with this verse. Oh, that the salvation of Israel would come from Zion. That's the scepter from Zion, the strength of Christ, the daughter Zion, Shiloh. Actually, it also had another meaning for Shiloh, which I meant to say. When God restores her captive people, let Judah, not Jacob, it says Jacob, but let Judah rejoice and let Israel be glad. And they will be when this is all revealed and shown to them as truth. But I was looking for, where is it? It also means this. Shiloh. To, it says him. No, it's to she whom it belongs. It's a messianic title. And it's a messianic title of your queen. That's what it's a name of. Your Shulamite is your peaceable, your perfect one that recompenses all back to the Lord, which means she restores the children back. She says, I restore back that which I took not away. She represents the righteous spirit now. And she grows brighter and brighter and brighter. Which is shown to us in A Song of Songs, if you want to read it. So, I think I covered everything I needed to cover. Thank you for watching my videos. I appreciate it, for sharing them. And I hope the Lord blesses you with truths, great truths out of the Scripture. The only way we're going to be really blessed with those truths is if we determine to go in and study and allow the Spirit, our reins, to guide us. And thanks again for watching, and I hope y'all have a really nice day.